Senator Blumenthal.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Just to complete the response and to clarify, nobody becomes a permanent resident without that full interview. Is that correct, Mr. Secretary?
That is correct, Senator.
Is there anything else you want to add in response to Senator Hawley's question?
I want to make sure that we understand that the incidence of violations of parole, which Senator Hawley correctly pointed to, is the great exception, the extraordinary exception, and not the rule. We are incredibly proud of Operation Allies Welcome and our ability to resettle individuals who have worked alongside us in the theater of war and who otherwise need humanitarian protection.
Thank you. Recently, Mr. Secretary, I had the opportunity to visit Camp Upshur at Quantico and to see some of the work that's being done to resettle a portion of the more than 120,000 Afghans who have been evacuated so far. As you know, 75 to 80,000 of them are either in this country or will be shortly. That is a massive challenge to resettle in this country. And I have a very deep concern about whether there's a plan to do it, whether there are sufficient resources to accomplish this massive feat of resettlement. As you may know, my office and I have been involved in attempting to evacuate after the withdrawal of American troops, not only American citizens, but Afghan allies who were stranded and trapped there, potentially at serious risk. The 120,000 who were airlifted, many of them were not at risk, which is why they were able to make it to the airport. The ones at risk were fearful of going through the Taliban checkpoints. And so they are still trapped there with targets on their back because they sided with us. They put their lives on the line as interpreters and translators and guards and others who helped our journalists as well as our troops and diplomats and protected them. So now we have this tremendous challenge ahead of us. And what I've seen about the evacuation effort is a lot of agencies pointing fingers at their other, whether it's state pointing fingers at DOD or DOD pointing fingers at DHS. And at Quantico, there is an alphabet soup of different agencies on the ground working on resettlement. I want to avoid the same finger pointing when it comes to our resettlement efforts. About $6.8 billion have been allocated so far, as you know, in the CR to accomplish resettlement. I am deeply concerned, number one, with evacuation of Afghans still at risk there. I've called for an evacuation czar to avoid this kind of attempt to shift blame and finger point in enabling our Afghan allies, as well as American citizens, green card holders, still there to leave the country. But also, while here, we need a similar kind of czar with the status and credibility. I know that Jack Markle is going to be leaving to become an ambassador. That position will soon be unfilled. But even that position is not sufficiently elevated to accomplish this task, and the resources available are inadequate. So I have two questions, and please understand, I'm trying to help you to help us help you with resources. And I'd like to know, what is your timeline and what do you need in the way of support and resources to accomplish this feat? Because there are resettlement agencies, IRIS and SIRI in Connecticut are two. They are all around the country trying to help, but they need support from your agency and others in this alphabet soup out at Quantico and similar bases around the country. And I want you to help me to help you with this task, because very shortly, as you know, whether it's at Quantico or any of the other bases, the weather's going to turn bad. The tent cities are going to become mud cities, and the residents of those cities, the guests as they're called, are going to rightly be pretty unhappy, particularly children, and about half of them are children. And I just want to finish by saying how impressed I was by the Marines I saw at Quantico, by the personnel out there. They are all in. They are working with the guests. I happened to meet, while I was there, among the guests, one of the families that was airlifted on one of the planes that my office was involved in arranging. One of the flights carried these people to freedom. It was incredibly moving for me to meet them and to know that they were there because of flights arranged in part because of my office. And I'd like you to tell me what we can do, because Americans should be invested in trying to enable these Afghans to escape.
Senator, let me, at the outset, just thank you for your leadership on this and your concern for the vulnerable individuals who remain in Afghanistan. Our commitment to them is ongoing, is continuous, and we've built a sort of a systematic approach to relief for them, and also for your concern with respect to resettlement. We're resettling, working very closely with the agencies, just over an average of about 4,000 Afghan nationals a week. Our timeline, thanks to the extraordinary work of Governor Markell and Bob Fenton, a FEMA Region 9 leader who's moved from San Francisco to Washington, D.C. to lead Operation Allies Welcome and our coordination efforts. We have a timeline of between December and February to complete the resettlement of the Afghan nationals here. We're very focused on jobs, on housing, and funding. We're grateful for Congress's assistance in that funding, and I'd welcome the opportunity to meet with you and discuss with you what other support we could really use to accomplish this mission. And I so greatly appreciate and value your leadership and commitment to it.
Well, I appreciate your answer. I would like to follow up if I don't have a chance in the second round to be more specific, or if you don't feel you have the response now. But I think it is absolutely critical that we have a firm timeline and that we, in effect, strengthen or harden or weatherize and winterize the facilities on these bases before December and February, even if we're able to accomplish that timeline, and to know from you very specifically what additional resources, what dollar amounts you need. Thank you.
Thanks, Senator Blumenthal. Senator Kennedy.